Okay, so this is just a video of a guy rambling on after drinking beer. This time, I'd like to talk about the dark side of shotguns in Resident Evil 4 Remake. There are 5 different shotguns in Resident Evil 4 Remake, and their performance is clearly differentiated. I looked into things that aren't covered in the game alone, and discovered some hidden performance differences and arms dealer scams. I'll explain them in 3 parts. 1. Shotgun characteristics. 2. Shotgun power. 3. The dark side of shotguns that no one knows about. Please note that this video is set to professional difficulty, and I've used a mod to display enemy health and damage dealt to better convey shotgun damage. By the way, this channel usually posts videos helpful for Resident Evil strategy, so if you're a fan of Resident Evil, please subscribe. Please answer yes or no. Now, let's get to the main topic. First, I'll explain the characteristics of shotguns. Each shotgun has a different reticle shape, so bullets that hit the center always deal the most damage. But how much damage does this center do relative to the total damage? For the weight 170, it's 35%. For the riot gun, it's 63%. For the striker, it's 7%. For the skull shaker, it's 22%. While the riot gun's damage drops significantly if you miss the center, the striker's damage is barely affected even if you miss. The weight 170 sawed-off, which can be used in Ada's story, has a damage rating of 60%, which is close to the riot gun's rating. Despite its wide reticle, it's surprisingly useful at medium to long ranges. Also, shotguns have damage fall-off, meaning damage decreases with distance. This isn't because fewer shots hit the enemy, but because the actual damage of the bullet itself decreases. For example, with an unmodified weight 170, a headshot normally deals 450 damage to the center point. At 5 meters away, it drops to 360. At 10 meters, it drops to 250. At 15 meters, it drops to around 160. The damage limit is 110 at about 22 meters, and bullets no longer hit the target beyond about 33 meters. Damage fall-off with distance also varies depending on the shotgun. With an unmodified riot gun, headshots normally deal 900 damage to the center point. At 5 meters, there's no fall-off at all, and even at 10 meters, it deals 870 damage. Of course, damage is about halved at 15 meters, but it's unlikely you'd ever fire a shotgun at that distance, so it's safe to say that the riot gun is barely affected by distance fall-off. I tested it with other shotguns, and they all seem to have distance fall-off at 5 meters. Because of their high damage at the center, the riot gun has superior performance at medium ranges and beyond. Now, I'll explain damage calculation. The damage calculation formula in Resident Evil 4 Remake is power times 100 times damage location modifier times game rank modifier. At game rank 5, which is right after the start of standard difficulty, the game rank modifier is 1 multiplier. At game rank 11, the highest game rank on professional difficulty, it is 0.6 multiplier. Therefore, this video will assume that the game rank modifier is 0.6 multiplier. Body part modifiers vary depending on the weapon type. For a shotgun, the torso receives a 2.5 multiplier, the head receives a 3.75 multiplier, and the limbs receive a 1.25 multiplier. Effectively, damage to the head is a 1.5 multiplier compared to the torso, and is halved for the limbs. With weapons like the riot gun, which deal high damage to the center point, it's easier to deal damage by aiming accurately at the head. With a striker, it's better to hit a lot of shotgun pellets, so it's easier to deal damage by aiming at the torso. So far, I've been talking about the characteristics of shotguns. Basically, it's that the damage from the center point and the shotgun pellets is different, and the power falls off over distance. Next, I'll explain the strength of shotguns. Shotguns are strong in group fights because they can attack a wide area. Even a single shotgun shot will usually stun a gunado, and it's easy to knock them down at close range. It's also effective at slowing down fast-moving enemies. While a rifle or magnum requires precise aim to stun an enemy, a shotgun can still stun an enemy even if your aim is a little off. The wider the shotgun's spread, the more tolerant it is of your aim, so the weight 170 and striker are probably easy to use even for those who aren't good at aiming. However, enemies like the bullhead and chainsaw man often don't stun them, so it might be better to keep your distance or use a different weapon. Shotguns are also effective against shield-wielding ganados. If you use a weapon with piercing capabilities, you can penetrate the shield and deal damage, but there's damage fall-off. On the other hand, a shotgun can easily remove a shield by getting close and hitting it, and a shotgun with a wide reticle can also damage surrounding enemies at the same time. If the enemy is using an iron shield, shooting directly at the shield will negate the damage, but it can stun them. And if you shoot at parts of the body that aren't covered by the shield, you can remove the shield in one shot and knock them down. It can also be used to some extent in boss battles. Bosses are usually large, so there's a high chance that all of the shotgun pellets will hit, which has the advantage of allowing you to deal damage efficiently. This wide range of uses and versatility make it a powerful weapon. Finally, I'd like to talk about the unknown dark side of the shotgun. So far, I've explained the features and strengths of shotguns, but I haven't talked about limited edition models yet. In fact, the descriptions of limited edition shotgun models are complete lies. For example, the limited edition weight 170 says that power increases by 2 multiplier, but this is also a complete lie. To be precise, this means that the power of the shotgun pellets is a 2 multiplier, not that of the center point. I'd like to test this by actually firing it at this nasty, club-wielding combatant with dead fish eyes. First, let's look at the weight 170 before the limited edition. The power is 10.1, so hitting the torso should theoretically deal 1515 damage. When I actually fired it, the center point was 540 damage, and the shotgun pellets were 81 times 12 shots equals 972, for a total of 1512 damage, which is almost correct. Next, let's look at the limited edition. If the power really was a 2 multiplier, then the power would be 20.2, so it should deal 3030 damage. When we actually fire, the center point does 540 damage, and the shotgun shells do 162 times 12 equals 1944, for a total of 2484 damage. By the way, it may look like 12 of the shotgun shells didn't hit the target. This is due to the specification of the mod you are using, which is that, when health reaches 0, further damage will not be displayed. In this video, the damage is calculated assuming all of the shotgun shells hit the target. The shotgun damage increases from 81 to 162, which is a 2 multiplier, but the damage at the center point remains 540, and the total damage increases from 1512 to 2484, which is only about a 1.65 multiplier. So now we know that what the arms dealer said about power increasing by 2 multipliers is different. I don't know, can you stop lying to me? This is not just a lack of explanation, it's a scam. Next up is the Skull Shaker. Like the weight 170, the Skull Shaker's power is multiplied by 2 for the shotgun pellets, while the damage from the center point remains unchanged. Before the limited edition, the damage was 9.7, so the calculated damage was 1361. When I actually fired it, the damage from the center point was 302, and the damage from the shotgun pellets was 76 times 14 shots equals 1064, for a total of 1366, which is pretty much correct. So, with the limited edition, the power should be multiplied by 2, but the damage from the center point was 302, and the damage from the shotgun pellets was 151 times 14 shots equals 2114, for a total of 2416, which shows that this isn't a 2 multiplier either. The total damage goes from 1366 to 2416, which is roughly a 1.75 multiplier, a bit higher than the weight 170. This is because it has 2 more shotgun shells than the weight 170, resulting in a larger damage increase. Without the limited edition, the weight 170's maximum damage is 10.1, while the Skull Shaker's is 9.7. With the limited edition, the total damage for both is in the 2400 range, so the difference isn't that big. So, even though the Skull Shaker appears to have the same power multiplier of 2 as the weight 170, it actually has a greater benefit than the weight 170. Next, I'd like to talk about the Riot Gun's power increase of 1.5 multiplier. This is the opposite of the previous 2 guns, in that the center point power is 1.5 multiplier, and the power of the shotgun shells remains the same. Without the limited edition, the maximum damage is 12.8, so mathematically it should be 1920 damage. When I actually fired it, the center damage was 1200, and the shotgun damage was 60 times 12 equals 720, for a total of 1920 damage. And when I fired it with the limited edition, the center damage was 1800, and the shotgun damage was 60 times 12 equals 720. It's true that the center damage went from 1200 to 1800, a 1.5 multiplier, but the total damage went from 1920 to 2520, a roughly 1.3 multiplier. So the explanation that power increases to 1.5 multiplier is a lie after all. However, when firing from mid-range or beyond, it almost always hits the center point, so it's fair to say the effective damage is a 1.5 multiplier. Also, the benefit of a 1.5 multiplier in damage at the center point is significant even against enemies with small weak spots like Galador. Compared to the weight 170 or Skull Shaker, I think the negative impact of the misleading labeling is less. The same goes for the Ada Chapter's Sawed Off, which has a 1.5 multiplier in damage at the center point. Before the limited edition, its maximum damage was 12.0, so it should be 1800 damage. The center point is 1080 damage, and the shotgun is 60 times 12 shots equals 720, so the total is indeed 1800 damage. When I fire with the limited edition, the center point does 1620 damage and the shotgun shells do 60 times 12 equals 720 damage, for a total of 2340 damage. The center point does indeed have a 1.5 multiplier, and the total damage is exactly 1.3 multiplier. Enemies in Ada's story have low health overall, so aiming at weak points from long distances is more effective than in the main game. The sawed-off weapon's reticle is wide, making it difficult to hit all the shots, so the benefit of the center point's power being increased by 1.5 multiplier is quite significant. Still, if we consider only total damage, the explanation that power increases by 1.5 multiplier remains a lie. I'll talk about the striker at the end, but unlike the previous ones, this is a lie that works to the player's advantage. The limited edition striker says that doubles ammo capacity. But in fact, the reload speed also increases by 2 multiplier. For example, an unmodified gun holds 2 bullets, but a limited edition gun holds 4. In other words, this prevents Leon from having to reload more often. I wonder why arms dealers are so considerate about such small details, yet lie about the power of their shotguns. In this way, the power multiplier of a limited edition shotgun is different from the in-game description when you consider total damage alone. If, like with the riot gun and sawed-off, only the power of the center point increased as described when modified into a limited edition weapon, it would be easier to feel the effect. The power of the center point of a weight 170 or Skull Shaker remains unchanged when modified into a limited edition weapon, so even if you hit the center point properly, you might not feel the 2 power multiplier. I'm sure some of you thought it was strange that the limited edition weight 170 didn't make much of a difference, but that's because you were deceived. However, this video proves that the explanation for the shotgun's limited features is false, so the arms dealer's scam tactics are now clear. So, I talked about the shotguns in Resident Evil 4 Remake. I think we've learned that choosing a shotgun is difficult unless you can tell a lie from another. After watching this video, which shotgun would you like to use? Please let me know your thoughts in the comments. I think most people completed the game without knowing the shotgun features I talked about in this video.
それってあなたの感想ですよね。
Even if you didn't know all this in-depth information, you still understood the characteristics of each shotgun and used them appropriately, so that means you made excellent decisions at that point. Thank you for watching until the end. If you liked this video, would you subscribe and like it? Please answer yes or no.